And we're back again. This is L.A. Kendrick from the House of Havoc, bringing you a new story of horror and dread. Now, this story, it picks up in Louisiana around 1844, and it's titled, "Who Are You Calling a Slave in 1844, Part 1. Now, there's a really intense and diabolical slave owner named Drummond. And he just acquired these new two slaves from Africa named Solomon and Fox. But these slaves, however, are very well versed, which means they come from a tribe that spoke a different dialect, but also many other dialects. Unbeknownst to Drummond, they both speak English. So that tells you about where they're from and their mindset. And they want to escape badly, but they can't. Because again, Drummond is notorious for being brutal, savage, and merciless when it comes to slaves and rebellion, and when they try to escape. So Solomon and Fox get the task of watching out for the livestock on the plantation in Louisiana. And it's not too far from some swamps and some bayous. And a lot of his livestock have been coming up missing: chicken, ducks, some goats. And he wants to check and make sure that he wants to make sure that the culprit is brought to task and to heal, if none other than to kill that individual. So he lets them know, "Hey boys, I have you guys watching my the livestock at night. I want you to keep an eye open, and either one of you sons of bitches that don't do what I need you to do is going to be hell to pay." So Solomon and Fox look at each other and look back at the slave owner Drummond and say, "Okay." They just nod their head yes. So nightfall comes, and they're patrolling the area with their lanterns and their sickles. And they notice there's some movement. Solomon notices there's some movement near the chicken coop. So they circle around. One circles to the right, one circles to the left. They basically flanking the individual. And when they come up on it, they see that it's an elderly male. Now they can't right off make out what nationality he is. They just know he's a dark complected male. It could be Indian, he could be a runaway slave, it could be whatever. But he's holding two chickens under each arm. And Solomon looks at Fox as Fox is about to sound the alarm, and he tells Solomon no, because he can see the intent in the man's eyes. And he can see he's also trying to display some compassion, because he understands exactly what it's like to be cornered, to be captured. So he lets the guy go. So the guy takes off running into the wood, the trees, the wood line. And when he does this, Fox understands exactly what he does, and he didn't have to say a word to him, he just understands. Unbeknownst to them, however, when they go to the slave quarters to call it a night, as the sunrise comes up, and they go to the slave quarters, there was a sellout slave that was going to tell the slave owner Drummond what had went on. So Drummond, the next morning, rounds up all the slaves, brings them outside, lines them up, and says, I'm going to make an example out of these two boys here, because from what I understand, you knew who the chicken thief or whoever that was stealing all my livestock or messing with my livestock apparently took two chickens last night, and you know who he is. So you boys going to come clean, or do I have to make an example out of you?" So Solomon and Fox look at each other, and they don't know what to say. Because again, Drummond is known to do the four-cornered deal. And if you don't know what that is, that's where they take a slave and tie an arm, a leg, well, both arms, both legs to an individual horse. And they smack the horse on the biggest, and they usually try to get the biggest buck to break the slave spirit. And they slap the horses, and the horses go in each direction. They pull the slave apart. And they've got years, decades, maybe even centuries of doing this, because the body parts have been strewn down in the bayous and the swamps. So again, he comes from a long line of just brutal slave owners, slavers, colonizers. And then they know, the rest of the slaves know that he's not playing around. So he says, you're either going to get the 40 lashes and the hot box, and then I'm going to kill you. So let me know what you know, boys. And Solomon and Fox just both say that they don't know anything about it. Nobody came on their watch last night. They didn't see anybody coming and going. And then the slave coon steps forward and he tells them, y'all did know what goes on last night. We saw it. We saw it, boss. They let him go. 2 chickens, and he ran out there near the pasture out yonder. Well, they couldn't refute the evidence, and they didn't even try. They just dropped their head, and Solomon stood with his head straight up. So they stripped them both down in front of the rest of the slaves to let them know that he meant business. Stripped them both down. And he threw Solomon in the hot box. And Solomon could hear what was about to happen to Fox. So you could hear Fox being given the 40 lashes across his back. And Fox never really made a yell out. He just kind of winced in pain with each lick. And I don't even think that Solomon had any idea what was coming next, but he could feel that his friend was being killed, beat severely, and knowing that he's probably going to be killed because of the reputation that the slave owner has, Drummond has. So that night, as Solomon sweats in the hot box naked, everything gets quiet. He has no food, no water. He's been in there for hours, pretty much the whole day. And he hears some rustling outside of the hot box. And what it is, it's pried open. And it's the gem. When he looks up, can barely see, but when he looks up, the guy has a lantern of his own, and it's the guy that he let escape with the chickens. And he says, hey, I'm letting you out. I'm freeing you. You take my hand. Let me get you up out of there. Here's some clothes, because he was naked. Here's some clothes for you. And what we're going to do is we're going to get you out of here. We're going to get you back to freedom. So Solomon climbs out, and he's thanking the man, and then he looks to the left, and then he can see his friend Fox home from the tree. Fox is gone. Solomon cries and tries to fight back his tears, and the man says, I know you're mourning for your friend, but we got to move. You show me some compassion, I'm showing you some compassion. And basically what I do is I go around looking for compassionate slaves to free them, to get them back home. We have Moors down past the bayous and the swamps on the other side that'll take you back to where you came from, back to the continent, the Caribbean, wherever you came from. And so Solomon is still grieving and looking, and he's hurting and he's crying because his best friend has been murdered by Drummond. But he's seething with anger. He said, I know you want revenge, but you ain't got time for that. Got to get you out of here. And he said, by the way, my name is Pinky. And let me get you out of here. So they go walk. They start walking off, and then Pinky said, well, I drew a map on this flat rock for you. Okay. Now this flat rock has got a map of how to get to the bayous and through the swamps and to the other side. You take this straight. You don't deviate from it. You take it straight. So Solomon says, well, I know they're going to come after me. How do I escape? He said, well, you don't worry about none of that. There's something down there that's going to have your back. And it's mean as hell itself. So I tell you what, you just go on through and let that deal with these guys. Because they're going to send the slave catchers to come get you. But you got a good head start. Unbeknownst to them, the same slave, coon slave that told on in the beginning, has alerted his Drummond again. So Drummond calls up his posse, his 8-man posse of slave catchers, to go after Solomon. And again, to bring him back and make an example out of him. And he's definitely going to kill him. So Solomon's making his way through, and then Pinky starts to explain to him what exactly is going to be catching his back. Because, as Solomon asked. And he tells Solomon, well, this thing is the rage and the hate of every slave that was ever killed by the bloodline of Drummond. He said there are legs, arms, and bodies. So what happened was we had a lady from the continent. She put a very powerful root on this thing. And she stitched together different body parts. I mean, this thing is huge. 4 legs, 2 arms, and just face just disfigured. Body riddled with whips and other markings. Just disfigure this thing. Just looking at it will send your heart into a frenzy where you feel like you're about to have a heart attack and stroke on out. But this thing has all the hell and hate from every slave master, and it's going to be projected back on that individual. Now, not only will it, if Drummond comes to this part, not only will it attack him, it'll kill everybody in his bloodline, and it'll curse his bloodline from on out, because it'll have his scent, and it'll have him. It'll have exactly how to go get the rest of his bloodline. They would probably have to move, and it still probably would track him down. It's like a golem. Okay, well, will it attack me? No, not normally, unless you try to renege on what you're trying to do, then it'll take you on out of here. Other than that, you're going to be fine. So, does this thing have a name? He said, oh yeah, of course it's got a name. It's called the Bawaga. The what? The Bawaga. Which means literally Redeemer of Souls. Now I'm going to leave you alone, young man. I'm going as far as I can. Got to go free some more slaves. But I tell you what, don't look back. The carnage this thing's going to do to them, you ain't never seen nothing like it. Ain't nothing that slavery could ever do. It's going to compare to what's going to happen to them when they come after you. But I thank you, my brother, for your kindness and your strength. I'm going to leave you be. Just keep heading that direction. Follow the stars. It's about 5, maybe 10 miles that way. You just follow the stars and you're going to be fine. Follow the stars and follow that map and you're going to be fine. Be careful now. There's some other things in that swamp, gators, snakes like that. So you know, just be careful. And I'm going to leave you. They shake hands. They embrace and give each other a good hug. And Solomon thanks him. And they depart. Now that's where I'm going to leave it. Who you calling a slave in 1844, part 2, start up again sometime this week. But for right now, this has been L.A. Kendrick from the House of Havoc. You know, please feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe. If you want to donate, please do that. It's $outrage is my Cash App. $outrage 95 is my Cash App. Please feel free to donate. But more importantly, please hit that like, share, comment button for me. That really, really does help. And I do have published work on Amazon, Barnes, Ingram, Kindle, and Nook, okay? Trying to give you guys something, original stories. This is my hobby. This stuff is copyrighted. My hobbies, one of my hobbies. I'm just trying to, like I say, provide some information and some entertainment, you know, during these rough times, okay? So I tell different stories from every angle and every aspect. And again, this has been L.A. Kendrick. Check your closets, check under your beds, check all the dark recesses of your house. And if you happen to work at night, please check your surroundings, check under your car, because you never know what's lurking in the dark, trying to make you a story. And this has been L.A. Kendrick, bringing you the heavy.